You can change the zoom level if you wish by using the drop down. Go down to 10%, and we can come back up to 100. Next, it's a standard navigation mode, the arrowhead on your cursor. Next one, if I click here now, the zoom in button, I will remain in the zoom in program, if you like. Each time I left click, it will zoom in 25%. If I right click, it will zoom out 25%. I'm going to zoom in again to 250. I'm going to take the zoom off. Now we can now see the navigation bars have come into play. But if you want to move the canvas itself, the button next to zoom, which is here, navigate the chart by dragging the cursor. If you click that, and then a hand appears, left click on the chart, you can then move the canvas about. Okay, I'm going to go back to standard. Moving across here now, forget the first one. Zoom to fit, zoom to width, and zoom to height, exactly what they say. Zoom to fit the canvas, zoom to fit the width of the canvas, and zoom to fit the height of the canvas. I'll just click on zoom to width now. It's brought it back to 100%. Because there are no further objects which will go off the canvas, that's why it's left it at 100%. I'll show you how the other buttons work as we go through, and we've got more items that we want to look at. We can look in a plan view. This will then show you the objects as they are laid out. Plan view on your canvas, if that was your canvas size for printing. If I just click on the canvas, it brings the objects back. Next, if we want to, we can select a view area. If I click here, then I can left click and drag round. Once I let go, it will zoom in to those three. I'll put it back to 100%. Moving across, we can move backwards and forwards through our charts. We can redo the layout. We can do a new chart. It tells you the chart type we're in at the moment. Next one here, we can actually expand the icons, the objects that's within the chart. By expanding it, it's making them further apart whilst keeping it in the area that we are working in. So the more I expand, you can see they are shrinking. I've gone now down to 21%. So they've expanded the distance between them, but by doing that the objects themselves have shrunk. To shrink them back again, so this is now actually going to shrink the distance between them, the objects will now come back again, and we finish up with 100%. The next one, we can stretch the chart to fit the window. So once we've done that, we've gone through how these particular buttons work. I'll now show you a little bit more about the work files. We've already talked in the work files about the queries, but further down you've got example queries. These are queries that's been written by Xanalys themselves, and all you have to do is to put a constraint with them in order for them to work. They're only basic queries, but they can help you to get started. We will use these more as we go into the training, but just to show you what one looks like, if I double click on people, the window opens with a basic people query. It's going to put it into a link chart, or we could decide for something else by clicking here. And to make this very simple, we could choose a last name, put a little tick in on the drop down menu, then pick a last name, and then we could run this query. We're not going to do that now, so I'll just cancel out. That was just to show you what they're actually there for. Moving further down, we've got data entry forms, text importer settings, and classes. Data entry forms, basically you can enter the data onto this system by typing it into forms. You can make these forms yourself very easy. The other way you can do it, if you look at the bottom here, you can see these icons. If you dragged any one of those icons onto the desktop, it would then allow you to fill the contents like a form. Again, I'll be showing you how these work later on. Let's just look at the data entry form now. By clicking on the plus, we have objects and links to objects. If you click on the plus next to objects, you'll see there's already one form in here for people. Double click and it opens the form for a person. It will give it the next unique number for that particular person, and then you can fill the contents in as required. We're not going to do that at this moment in time, so just close it. You can then see links and objects beneath there. If you click on the plus again, person to event, if I double click on this one, again the person comes back as number 1 on the left hand side. Then we've got event, and then we've got the link person to event. So we could create the person here, create the event, and then create the reason for the event. That's like the link line between them. I'll explain, as I say, later on how this actually works. We have no text importer settings at the moment. If we did have, they would be in here. Next thing we've got is classes. So let's look at the classes. If we click on the plus next to classes, you can see we've got objects and links. I'll just bring the scroll back down a little bit. Click on the plus next to next to objects, and these are the objects contained within the database. So now if we look at location and click on the plus here, you can see within location we've got all the attributes that go with it. We've got the key at the top, the location ID, the unique ID, then we've got a label we can give it, categories, all the details of the house where it is, then we've got eastings and northings. Very important, these. If you've got these details and you're linked to mapping software, you can actually map direct from Xanalys. Okay, so if I now go back up and click on the little button to minus this down, now we can have a look at the person. Click on the plus there, and you will see in here all the attributes for a person. I'll reduce that back down again. Please feel free to have a look through these different objects and see the kind of attributes that we actually have for them. Bearing in mind all these are fully searchable to create links and to create charts with. The next we can look at down at the bottom here is links. If you click on the plus next to links, that takes us into the links between the objects. So we're going to be drawing link lines between the objects, or the program will, and this is the information that's contained within those links. So if I went to say a link between a person and an event, which is down here near the bottom, and clicked on the plus, you can see in there we've got a unique person ID and a unique event ID. And again we've got labels and categories, we've got the person in there, and then we've got the event details. This is how they can be linked together. Please feel free to have a look at other links which are contained in here. At the very bottom we've got the database we're connected to, the Big Leak database. So if you want to look at any of those to see the sort of attributes that we've got, please feel free. You can pause this tutorial while you do so, and then eventually we're going to save it. So to save, we need to scroll all the way back up to the top. Now there are two ways to save. We can either click on the actual save button and save the data. It will actually tell us, or I should say, we'll save the data where we've told it to save it in the first place, or if this is the first save, it will ask us where we want to save the data. Or we can click on File and Save. We can go Save As, and you will now see that the work file has defaulted to where it says save in to the Xanalys folder. If you wish to save it anywhere else, you can click on Browse, and then you can save it anywhere else on your computer. I'm going to cancel out of this. You can also see the database has defaulted to the Xanalys folder. We can embed the database in the work file. This will keep them both together. However, you will not be able to attach other work files to the database. So it's good practice to keep them separate. Then you can use multiple work files as necessary. So let's name our file. Call it your own name if you wish, or if you was working an operation, you could call it the operation name. I'm going to call mine Stephen's file. Once you've named it, you can click on OK, and then that will save. Now then, something to bear in mind. We've saved this piece of information with the actual query open, that is the events here on the screen. When we start Xanalys again, it will automatically run all open queries whilst it is starting, which with this little one opens no real problem. However, if you've got a large database and you've been doing complex queries before you've closed and you've left them all open, the program will run all the queries whilst it is opening. And depending on how complex the queries are, could depend on how long it takes the program to open. So I would suggest, before you close the queries down. Once you've done that, you may need to save again. Now you can close the program down. If you want to open the program again, double click on Link Explorer. Eventually the program itself will open. You can click on File, and then the options you have are to click on your last work file, which will be here. We've got the last 3 files you opened, or you can click on a new work file, or you can click on Open and find the file that you want. This is just left a temporary file here for the time being, and then you could click on that and then just click Open. You can see here with drop down put details. If I just extend that slightly, you can see the different times on these files, 1934, 1935. That's the 2 saves we did. The latest file is the top one. I'm not going to open mine for the time being. I'm going to cancel out of it and close Xanalys down, and then we're ready for the next session. Thank you.